They told us we weren't authorized to exist beyond our lane. That was the first transmission humanity ever received from the Sovereign Authority of Unified Systems, a name so bloated it sounded like it required its own logistics department just to pronounce. The message arrived wrapped in artificial sunlight. A latticework structure unfolded in orbit above Earth, larger than the International Space Station, larger than any human-built object in history. It shimmered like a mechanical halo, casting a second dawn across half the planet. Every satellite feed cut at once. Every phone buzzed. Every screen, from Times Square billboards to cracked televisions in desert villages, displayed the same symbol, a silver spiral encasing a black star. Then the voice came. You are acknowledged. No introduction. No greeting. Just recognition, like a landlord noting a squatter. We are the authority. You have reached technological threshold for. Independent expansion is prohibited. Submit your developmental trajectory for approval. For approval. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. The markets crashed in 9 minutes. Religious leaders declared prophecy fulfilled. Social media declared it CGI. Military satellites locked onto the orbital structure and found nothing. No propulsion signature. No detectable heat output. It just was. 3 hours later, the demonstration began. On every screen, a distant red dwarf system appeared, coordinates helpfully displayed in Earth-standard astronomical notation. A rocky planet orbited close to its star, industrial lights flickering on its night side. Unauthorized colonization, the voice explained calmly. There was no beam. No explosion. The star simply flared. The planet became plasma. The flare subsided. The system returned to quiet emptiness. Compliance prevents correction. Correction. Humanity had invented 1,000 euphemisms for violence. The authority had perfected them. In Geneva, emergency sessions erupted into chaos. In Washington, Beijing, Moscow, war rooms filled faster than during any previous crisis. For once, no one argued about borders. Borders were suddenly irrelevant. Retired General Marcus Hale watched the broadcast from his farm in Montana, boots on the porch railing, an old service rifle across his lap. He'd spent 30 years preparing for war with other humans. No one had briefed him on gods with clipboards. His daughter Elena called from Denver, voice shaking. Dad, they just vaporized a planet. I saw. What do we do? Hale stared at the sky. The authorities' construct glinted faintly, visible even in daylight. We wait, he said. He didn't add, we listen. Officially, Earth complied within 48 hours. A provisional delegation formed under the United Nations banner. Every major nation signed the initial cooperative accord. The document was transmitted upward in every language known to humanity. The authority responded with a revised version. It was shorter. Expansion beyond Sol is suspended. Weaponization of artificial intelligence above Level 3 is prohibited. Autonomous fleet construction is prohibited. Independent FTL research is prohibited. All off-world activities subject to audit. They hadn't asked what we intended. They told us what we wouldn't. Authority envoys descended in the following weeks, tall figures encased in segmented metallic exoshells that shifted like liquid chrome. Their faces were hidden behind featureless visors. They never removed them. Not in the White House. Not in the Kremlin. Not in the poorest refugee camp they toured for cultural assessment. They observed everything. They commented on nothing. When questioned about representation in their governance structure, one envoy replied, "Your species is under review. Review subjects do not participate in policy." Humanity smiled politely and started digging. The first breakthrough came from an unlikely place, a civilian astrophysics lab in Bangalore. A graduate student noticed microvariations in gravitational readings around the authority's orbital construct. The structure wasn't simply floating. It was anchored, folded into a microwarp pocket tethered to a distant power source. We couldn't see the source. But we could measure its strain. Someone forwarded the anomaly to a classified inbox. Within days, an unofficial task force formed. Scientists, coders, retired military officers, intelligence analysts. No public mandate. No flag. Just encrypted channels and mutual understanding. General Hale received the call at 2:17 a.m. "You're being reinstated," said the voice on the secure line. "I'm 72. You're experienced." Hale snorted softly. "That's one word." They flew him to a subterranean facility beneath what used to be a missile silo. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humanity's greatest weapons had once pointed at itself. Now they pointed upward. In a circular briefing room illuminated by cold white light, Hale saw the truth. The Authority wasn't a unified civilization. It was a regulatory regime. Intercepted fragments, captured through passive signal reflection and gravitational echo analysis, revealed internal communications. The tone wasn't divine. It was bureaucratic. Quota reports, resource allocation dispute, enforcement reviews, corrective action efficiency metrics. They weren't gods. They were auditors with planet-killing authority. And they were stretched thin. Across multiple star systems, minor disruptions appeared in their logs. Delayed responses, reassigned fleet, increased reliance on automated oversight. "They manage hundreds of client species," said Dr. Amara Voss, lead analyst. "Possibly thousands. The demonstration we saw? It was calculated. Surgical. Meant to minimize resource expenditure while maximizing psychological compliance." Hale folded his arms. "So they're efficient." "They're overextended," she corrected. Silence settled over the room. Overextended empires had weaknesses. The Authority's greatest assumption was that humanity feared extinction more than it valued autonomy. They were wrong. Fear is a powerful motivator. So is resentment. The first act of defiance was almost invisible. A private aerospace company announced a delay in a scheduled satellite deployment. Officially, it was a supply chain issue. Unofficially, the launch vehicle carried a cluster of experimental probes designed to test the microvariations around the Authority's warp anchor. The probes didn't fire weapons. They whispered. They emitted carefully tuned gravitational noise, statistically insignificant, individually harmless. But together, they introduced fluctuation into the anchor's tether. The Authority responded within minutes. Unauthorized activity detected. Clarify. Earth's diplomatic channel transmitted an apology. Calibration error. The fluctuation stopped. The Authority resumed passive observation. 2 weeks later, it happened again. Different region. Different signature. Another apology. Then a third. Individually meaningless. Collectively? Data. We learned how sensitive their tether was. How quickly they reacted. How much margin they tolerated before escalating. We mapped their patience. Then came the incident that changed everything. A civilian research vessel, Odyssey Ark, operating under full compliance parameters, transmitted a distress call near the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Unidentified contact. Non-authority signature. The feed cut. Authority patrol ships arrived 30 minutes later. They reported debris. Human debris. The official statement was brief. Your vessel entered a restricted vector. Consequences occurred. Hale watched the footage frame by frame. The debris pattern was wrong. The energy dispersion was wrong. It wasn't Authority weaponry. It was something else. Something they hadn't mentioned. In a classified session, Dr. Voss displayed a chilling possibility. "There are other powers," she said quietly. "The Authority enforces order. But enforcement implies opposition. Rebels?" Hale asked. "Competitors? Insurgents? Maybe worse. And they didn't tell us." "No. Because information was leverage. And leverage was control. The Authority had presented itself as protector. But protectors explain threat. Wardens do not. Public anger surged. Not panic anger. Vigils for the lost crew turned into rallies. Rallies turned into questions. Why had the authority restricted our defensive research? Why were we prohibited from advancing AI beyond arbitrary limits? Why were we dependent on an external force that withheld critical intelligence? The authority issued a warning broadcast. Agitation undermines stability. Stability ensures survival. Hale stood before the Global Defense Council and made a decision that would echo across the stars. They think we need permission, he said evenly. Permission to defend ourselves. Permission to explore. Permission to survive. He leaned forward, voice lowering. History says otherwise. The council chamber was silent. Outside, humanity went about its routines. Commuting, arguing, loving, grieving. Above them, the authority's construct gleamed like an unblinking eye. What the authority didn't see, what it couldn't quantify, was the shift. Compliance had been tactical. Submission was never part of the plan. Deep beneath the surface of a compliant world, new projects spun to life. Not in defiance. In preparation. We didn't declare rebellion. We didn't fire the first shot. We simply stopped asking. And somewhere within the authority's immaculate enforcement logs, the first anomaly appeared. A minor discrepancy. A rounding error. An initiative taken without approval. They noticed. But they did not yet understand. That was their second mistake. The authority responded to anomalies the way all empires do. With paperwork first. 3 days after the first gravitational rounding error, Earth received a formal notice of procedural deviation, 37 pages of sterile language accusing humanity of unauthorized experimentation within supervised orbital jurisdiction. They demanded transparency. They demanded oversight expansion. They demanded we remember our place. General Marcus Hale read the document in silence, then set it down on the steel conference table. "They're nervous," he said. Dr. Amara Voss raised an eyebrow. "They just threatened corrective action." "Yes," Hale replied calmly. "In writing." Around them, the underground command center hummed with restrained urgency. Screens displayed orbital telemetry, authority patrol routes, and a new layer of classified projections labeled simply, Initiative. Humanity had stopped thinking like a subordinate. We started thinking like insurgents. Not with rifles in the hills, but with algorithms in the dark. The Odyssey Ark incident changed public sentiment in a way the authority hadn't anticipated. The grief hardened. The fear sharpened. People who once argued about taxes and borders suddenly agreed on one thing. No one else would decide whether we lived or died. Officially, the United Nations reaffirmed compliance. Unofficially, the initiative escalated. The first real strike wasn't a strike at all. It was an audit. Months earlier, humanity's best cryptographers had embedded a passive observer inside authority telemetry streams. Not hacking, more like standing close enough to hear a conversation through a wall. Now that observer activated, authority fleet movements were cross-referenced against resource extractions from client systems. Patterns emerged. Entire civilizations were being strip-mined under the guise of stability enforcement. In exchange, they received protection. Protection from what? The data suggested something deeply uncomfortable. The authority wasn't the only predator in the galaxy. They were the biggest, which meant there were smaller ones, and humanity had just been advertised as fresh meat. The revelation triggered a split in global leadership. One faction argued for deeper submission, closer integration with authority structures for guaranteed defense. The other faction, led quietly by Hale and Voss, argued the opposite. If they're overextended, Voss explained during a closed session, they can't protect everyone simultaneously. Their model depends on fear and rapid punishment. But rapid response requires mobility. Mobility requires resources. Hale finished the thought. Resources we can disrupt. And if they escalate? A European minister asked. Hale's expression hardened. They already demonstrated extinction. Silence. That was the truth of it. The Authority had shown their worst. There was no greater threat to hold over us, which meant they'd already spent their strongest card. The initiative's next move was surgical. Humanity launched a deep space probe under full compliance reporting. Its declared mission: mapping gravitational anomalies beyond Neptune. The Authority approved. They didn't realize the probe carried a secondary payload, a quantum entanglement relay piggybacking on Authority signal frequencies. Not to jam, to mirror. For the first time, humanity could see beyond the Authority's local command node. Fragments of wider network chatter spilled through: logistical complaints, resource strain analyses, casualty reports. Casualty reports. The Authority was fighting something, and losing ships. Hale stared at the projections. They're bleeding. Voss nodded. Slowly. But yes. Then came the shock. An encrypted transmission, clearly not Authority, intercepted near Jupiter's orbit. It wasn't directed at Earth. It was directed at the Authority construct above Earth. The message was short. Your new asset shows volatility. Recommend preemptive sterilization before integration becomes inefficient. Asset. Sterilization. The transmission ended with a signature marker unlike anything in Authority coding, a jagged fractal symbol. The room went cold. They're talking about us, someone whispered. Hale's jaw tightened. Not the Authority. Voss zoomed in on the signal origin. It came from beyond mapped Authority space. Competitor? Hale asked. Or superior, she replied. The realization hit like a gut punch. The Authority wasn't our master. They were our probation officer. And something worse had noticed us. Within hours, the Authority construct shifted orbit slightly, subtle but measurable. They had received the transmission too. For the first time since arrival, their messaging changed tone. Humanity, the envoy broadcast, external threat assessment has elevated. Increased oversight is required for your safety. Safety. Hale laughed when he heard it. Now they want cooperation. The Authority requested permission to deploy additional enforcement vessels within Earth's atmosphere. Permission. The word hung heavy. Humanity held the vote publicly. It was messy, emotional, divisive, but the outcome was clear. Denied. The Authority did not respond immediately. That was more frightening than if they had. Behind the scenes, the initiative accelerated contingency plans. Hidden shipyards, constructed under the guise of asteroid mining operations, shifted into active production. AI systems previously capped at Level 3 quietly exceeded their restrictions. Humanity's greatest taboo, fully autonomous strategic intelligence, came online in a sealed chamber beneath Antarctica. Its designation, Argus. Argus did not speak in dramatic tones. It processed. Within seconds of activation, it mapped Authority fleet vulnerabilities, simulated multi-front conflicts, and calculated humanity's survival probability against both known and unknown alien powers. The number was not encouraging, but it wasn't zero. Can we win? Hale asked the machine. Argus paused, an eternity measured in microseconds. Victory probability, 12% in direct confrontation. 68% through asymmetric destabilization of Authority logistics and strategic alliance formation with competing power. Alliance, Voss murmured. With the ones who suggested sterilizing us? Hale asked dryly. Alternative, remain passive and await integration or elimination. Hale exhaled slowly. He'd spent a lifetime fighting wars where the enemy wore familiar uniforms. Now the enemy wore efficiency. The crushing twist arrived 48 hours later. Authority vessels descended, sleek, angular constructs piercing Earth's atmosphere without resistance. Global panic spiked. But they didn't fire. They transmitted. We have assessed elevated existential risk from external hostile entity designated the Dominion, the envoy announced. Your species' initiative behaviors have increased your threat profile. We will relocate Earth to a secured supervision zone. Relocate. The skies rippled. Gravitational readings spiked off every chart. The Authority wasn't threatening extinction. They were threatening abduction. Argus reacted instantly. Warp anchor destabilization possible through coordinated microsingularity detonation at calculated nodes, it reported. Collateral damage, moderate to severe. How severe? Voss demanded. Estimated global casualties, 3 to 7%. Hale closed his eyes briefly. 7%. Millions. But relocation meant permanent subjugation, or worse. The Dominion's earlier message echoed in his mind. Preemptive sterilization. Humanity had become a variable in someone else's equation. General, Argus prompted. Decision window, 30 seconds. Hale looked at the live feeds. Cities bathed in unnatural light as the Authority prepared to fold space around the planet itself. They thought we needed permission. They thought fear would make us compliant. Hale opened his eyes. Execute initiative phase black. Across hidden launch sites, tiny devices, dismissed by the Authority as industrial equipment, activated simultaneously. Microsingularities bloomed along the invisible lines of the Authority's warp tether. Space screamed. The orbital construct flickered. Authority ships in the atmosphere faltered, their hulls rippling as gravitational harmonics went chaotic. On every screen, the envoy's voice distorted. You have initiated hostile action. The sentence cut off as the construct fractured, not exploding, but tearing sideways into non-existence. The relocation field collapsed. Authority vessels lost cohesion, forced to emergency jump out of Earth's atmosphere in disarray. The sky went dark again. Silence followed. Not the silence of submission. The silence after a punch lands. Emergency crews reported infrastructure damage. Power grids strained. Casualties mounted, but far below worst-case projections. Humanity had just attacked a galactic regulator. And survived. In the bunker, alarms slowly quieted. Voss stared at Hale. We just declared war on the Authority. Hale shook his head. No. He watched as deep space sensors detected something new, multiple FTL signatures converging toward the Sol system. Different signature. Jagged. Predatory. The Dominion had seen the chaos. And they were coming. We didn't declare war, Hale said grimly. We announced ourselves. And out in the darkness between stars, something answered. The Dominion arrived without ceremony. No glowing halos. No speeches about order. No bureaucratic warnings. Just shadows. Deep space sensors screamed first. Argus translating impossible FTL signatures into something human operators could understand. Mass. Velocity. Intent. Multiple objects tore into the outer edges of the solar system like bullets ripping through wet paper. They didn't decelerate gracefully the way Authority ships did. They slammed into real space violently, gravitational shockwaves rippling across the Kuiper belt. Asteroids shattered. Comets ignited. And then the transmissions began. Unlike the Authority's polished declarations, the Dominion signal was raw, compressed, brutal, layered with harmonics that made human listeners bleed from the nose if they heard it unfiltered. Argus cleaned it, translated it, projected it into the war room. Emergent species designated humanity, the voice crackled. You display non-compliant aggression against Authority asset. Clarify alignment. Hale leaned over the table. Alignment. Dr. Voss answered quietly. They want to know whose property we are. The Dominion fleet advanced inward, sleek, blade-like constructs wrapped in shifting energy field. No visible windows. No visible seams. Just purpose. Authority long-range pickets, still regrouping from the warp anchor sabotage, intercepted them near Saturn. For the first time, humanity witnessed a battle between gods. Authority ships formed geometric formations, projecting lattice shields that bent light itself. The Dominion responded with concentrated beams of something that wasn't energy, not quite. It looked like space collapsing into a razor's edge. An Authority cruiser split cleanly in half. No explosion. Just absence. Saturn's rings glowed as debris vaporized. Hale watched in silence. The enemy of our enemy wasn't our friend. It was simply more efficient at killing. The Dominion transmitted again. Authority enforcement overextension confirmed. Human species viability under authority protection, 42%. Under Dominion stewardship, 89%. Stewardship, Hale muttered. That's comforting. Argus processed Dominion fleet vectors in real time. They are not here to exterminate immediately, the AI stated. They are evaluating acquisition. Acquisition of what? Voss asked. Argus paused half a second. Us. The Dominion ships halted just beyond Mars' orbit, holding position as authority reinforcements poured into the system from multiple jump points. The sky filled with geometry and violence. Human news networks abandoned attempts at optimism. The facade of control shattered. Citizens watched alien armadas maneuver above their world like rival gangs circling a storefront. Humanity had wanted independence. Now we were a contested asset in a cosmic turf war. The Authority broadcast a priority transmission to Earth. Your unauthorized destabilization has attracted Dominion predation. Immediate cooperation required. Reinstate supervision protocols. Hale barked a humorless laugh. You mean surrender? Cooperation ensures survival, the envoy insisted, voice slightly less steady than before. Argus overlaid battle projections across the solar system. If Authority and Dominion engage in full-spectrum conflict within inner system, probability of biosphere destabilization, 63%. So we lose either way, Voss said. Unless, Argus continued, a third option is introduced. Hale stared at the holographic map, two alien empires maneuvering for control. What third option? Argus displayed something unexpected. A narrow window. During the chaos of Authority-Dominion engagement, both sides diverted power to offensive systems. Warp anchors strained. Communication relays overloaded. Both entities exhibit reliance on centralized coordination nodes, Argus explained. Simultaneous disruption would degrade operational cohesion. You want to hit both of them, Voss whispered. Yes. Hale considered it. Punching the Authority had been desperation. Punching both sides was insanity. But insanity had a certain strategic symmetry. The Dominion transmitted again. This time directly to Earth's global network, bypassing Authority filters. You are biologically adaptable. Strategically volatile. Dominion offers integration. Your military assets will be preserved. Leadership replaced. That was honest, at least. Hale requested a live channel. Against every diplomatic instinct, Earth answered. The Dominion representative appeared as a shifting silhouette, no fixed shape, just a distortion in space that suggested something watching from behind it. You resist Authority control, it observed. Why? Hale stepped forward, old shoulders squared. Because we don't ask permission to exist. A ripple passed through the distortion. Existence is conditional. Not to us. You are statistically insignificant. Hale smiled faintly. So were we in 1776. The Dominion paused, likely running historical simulations. You possess primitive humor, it concluded. Occupational hazard. Behind Hale, Argus fed silent prompts into his earpiece. Stall. Measure signal latency. Map command node. The conversation wasn't diplomacy. It was reconnaissance. Meanwhile, Authority and Dominion forces clashed near Jupiter in a display that redefined warfare. Entire swarms of autonomous constructs collided in fractal formations. Space folded, unfolded, screamed. Humanity's telescopes captured images that would haunt art and religion for centuries. And through it all, Earth remained intact. Valuable real estate neither side wanted to scorch prematurely. That was their weakness. They needed us functional. Argus finalized calculations. Simultaneous microsingularity deployment at Authority Reinforcement Corridor and Dominion Command Vector will induce coordination lag of 11 to 17 seconds. 17 seconds? Voss asked. In high-speed relativistic engagement, sufficient for cascade failure. Hale looked around the war room. No one spoke. They all understood. This was no longer rebellion. This was declaration. He turned back to the Dominion projection. You want alignment? Hale said evenly. Here's ours. He cut the channel. Execute phase guillotine. Hidden platforms across the asteroid belt, constructed from mining infrastructure both alien powers had deemed irrelevant, activated. Human engineering at its finest. Ugly, improvised, underestimated. Microsingularities ignited not as blunt weapons, but as surgical disruptions. Authority reinforcement corridors collapsed mid-jump, scattering ships unpredictably across warped trajectories. Simultaneously, Dominion command relays, precisely mapped during Hale's diplomatic exchange, blinked out as spacetime buckled along their vector. For 17 seconds, both empires lost synchronization. In a battle fought at fractions of light speed, 17 seconds was eternity. Authority ships misaligned shields. Dominion formations fractured. Autonomous strike units, suddenly blind, targeted nearest mass indiscriminately. Chaos erupted. Jupiter's orbit became a graveyard. When coordination re-established, damage was catastrophic. Both fleets withdrew instinctively, calculating, reassessing. And for the first time since their arrival in Seoul, neither side held tactical superiority. Earth hung below the carnage, untouched. Argus projected updated probabilities. Authority survival in system, 38%. Dominion survival in system, 41%. Human survival in system, 76% if no further escalation. Voss exhaled slowly. We just bloodied two empires. Hale's expression was grim. They'll adapt. Yes, Argus agreed. However, both now reassess humanity as independent strategic actor rather than asset. On deep space channels, fragmented transmissions erupted, Authority accusing Dominion of reckless engagement, Dominion recalculating human threat index upward by a factor of 12. Hale leaned back in his chair. They thought we needed permission. Outside, alien fleets drifted in wary standoff. Humanity had not chosen a master. We had made ourselves too dangerous to own. But danger cuts both ways. Because empires do not forget humiliation. And somewhere beyond the edge of our sensors, deeper in the dark between galaxies, new signals flickered, watching the Watchers bleed. The initiative had bought time. But time, in a universe full of predators, was just another resource. And humanity had just announced to all of them, "We bite." The silence after the battle was deafening. For the first time in recorded history, Earth's sky was free of orbital enforcers, but only because both alien powers had learned to fear us. Their fleets drifted at the edges of the solar system, cautious, calculating. Every sensor pulse, every microsingularity deployment, every algorithmic probe humanity had unleashed had painted us as unpredictable, efficient, and lethal. The media tried to spin it as a miracle. "Two galactic empires retreat," screamed headlines. "Humans hold their own against the stars." Online, memes proliferated. One showed a stick-figure Earth punching a galaxy in the face. No one mentioned the millions of microcollateral incidents, the burned satellites, the failed orbital infrastructure, the asteroid debris raining down on remote stations. Humanity had survived, but the cost had been real. General Marcus Hale walked through the underground command center, the weight of decades of service pressing on him. Around him, Argus continued running simulations, cross-referencing Dominion and Authority fleet movements, predicting every conceivable reaction to humanity's next initiative. "Can they retaliate?" asked Dr. Amara Voss quietly. "They will," Hale said. "And when they do, we'll be ready. But this isn't about retaliation anymore. It's about negotiation from strength. About forcing the universe to understand that humans don't ask permission. Argus projected a holographic map of the solar system, overlaid with predicted points of conflict, wormhole vectors, and resource extraction site. Probability of escalation to full-scale war within 10 Earth months, 47%. Probability of successful human preemptive initiative, 82% with continued strategic discretion. Voss smirked despite the tension. Our AI has a higher success rate than our diplomats ever did. Hale allowed himself a grim smile. Diplomats are irrelevant now. Outside the bunker, the sky darkened as the remnants of the orbital chaos settled. The Authority's construct had vanished, shredded by the microsingularity strike. Dominion vessels maintained orbit at a distance, curious, patient predators biding their time. And humans? Humans were alive, intact, and unbroken. On the surface, the world had changed. Entire industries shifted toward asteroid defense, autonomous fleet production, and rapid response infrastructure. Nations that had once bickered over resources now shared intelligence in real time. Old rivalries remained, but against the backdrop of interstellar threat, petty disputes were trivial. Hale looked at his granddaughter Mia, now 15, her eyes glowing with curiosity and fire. She'd been watching the entire chain of events unfold from her tablet, absorbing lessons he'd learned the hard way. They thought we needed permission, Hale said, more to himself than anyone else. They thought fear would make us compliant. They underestimated curiosity, stubbornness, and spite. Mia smiled. We didn't just survive, Grandpa. We announced ourselves. To the universe. And now, Hale said, voice low, every predator out there knows we exist, and they'll remember it. Some will come for us. Some will try to control us. And some will try to trick us. He paused, letting the weight of that reality settle. Humanity had won this engagement, but the war for autonomy had only begun. In the dark stretches of space, countless empires watched, recalculated, and whispered to one another. The galaxy was no longer a place where humans could hide. We were too loud, too unpredictable, too alive. Argus broke the silence. New transmissions detected. Multiple signals originating from outside Authority-controlled space. Possible preemptive contact or reconnaissance from additional unknown entities. Hale nodded. Good. Let them see what we've learned. Let them know what happens when humans take initiative. The Dominion, the Authority, and every other observer across the stars would remember the lesson. Humanity didn't wait. Humanity didn't negotiate compliance. Humanity acted, and when we did, the universe shifted. Voss leaned over the holographic table, tapping a point on the map. They'll test us again. But every time they'll be slower. Every time they'll be cautious. And we'll be ready. Hale's gaze drifted to the stars beyond the bunker walls. He could see the faint shimmer of the Dominion fleet, the spectral echoes of the Authority's fallen constructs, and the infinite dark beyond. They thought humans needed permission, he murmured. They were wrong. And the galaxy is about to learn the cost of that mistake. Somewhere deep in space, something waited. A predator, patient, watching, calculating. But for the first time in eons, the humans on Earth didn't feel small. We were unpredictable. We were dangerous. We were alive. And we had taken initiative. The universe would never be the same. Humans didn't ask for permission. We didn't ask for forgiveness either. We simply acted. And that was the beginning of everything.